Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have KAJ Logue. He is an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and podcast host. Welcome to the show, KAJ.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to the show, KAJ. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about real estate and financial freedom. But first of all, let's understand your financial freedom, your journey to financial freedom through real estate. Help us a bit about your journey facing adversity to becoming a successful real estate investor and entrepreneur.
For sure. Yeah. So again, my name's KAJ Logue. I live in San Antonio, Texas. So I'm originally from right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And yeah, so my journey, it's been quite an interesting one. So I started out, as a kid, I kind of had a hard time growing up. I bounced around a lot. I lived in group homes and juvenile detention centers. I was really on the wrong track. And I turned my life around when I found sales. And sales was the first thing I was ever good at. So I dove all into it, went into sales. By the time I was 23, I decided to start selling for myself and started my first business. And, that went really well. We had some ups and downs, but, I learned a lot and I was able to exit that company and sell it. From there, I started doing marketing, but I always wanted to get into real estate. So I always thought real estate investing would be, the path to freedom. The first wealthy person I ever met, got his wealth through real estate. So it was always in the back of my mind. But I had a lot of limiting beliefs and thoughts that, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for people who grew up how I did, or really looking back, those were all just, negative self-talk and, beliefs I had on why it wouldn't work for me. I thought you had to have perfect credit and, rich parents, and that you had to have, know how to fix things and all these things I didn't know how to do or didn't have. But what I found was eventually I found this thing called real estate wholesaling, which is really just doing sales and marketing, which I've done my entire life. And, as soon as I found out about it, I bought a course. I did exactly what the course said. And then after I was able to get a deal in about 60 days. And then shortly after that, I started to implement a lot of the strategies I learned along the way in my other businesses. And that's when I really started seeing success with real estate and really started along my path.
Right, KAJ. So help us a bit about, information about real estate wholesaling. What is this wholesaling? I've got understood about, multi-family units, but help us a bit about, maybe we know it, but in India we use another term for it. So help us understand what this wholesaling, real estate wholesaling is all about.
For sure. So real estate wholesaling, is something I was unfamiliar with myself until a few years ago when I started doing it. Really all it is it's flipping contracts. So it's getting a deal, finding a good real estate deal. You get it under contract, and then you sell that contract to another investor. So basically you're the middleman. So you work with the seller, and you get their house under contract. You get them to sign a contract. Then you find a buyer, usually another investor, and you sell that contract to them. And basically how you make your profit is whatever the difference is between what the seller is willing to sell for and what the buyer is willing to pay. So whatever that difference is, that's your profit. And that's really it. Yeah. So you just focus on the sales and marketing. You don't have to worry about, fixing the property. You don't have to worry about getting financing, any of that stuff. You just have to worry about finding deals.
Right, KAJ. So in terms of how do you work out such contracts? Means it can be a huge risk for someone because if it takes time to sell those units, or if it does not work out for you, or does it can also lead to a loss if there is a sudden change in market condition. So I want to understand a bit about the contract side. What sort of a contract does one sign with the seller? Because you are the middleman and you are dependent on both sides. Your life hangs in either being the final buyer as well as the original seller.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with our contracts, we give ourselves, it protects us. I mean, there are contracts. We've had lawyers do them. And if anyone needs contracts or wants to use them, they can reach out to me. I'll send you the ones that we had made. But really with wholesaling, there's no risk on my side as a wholesaler. So the risk is almost zero because we have an option period. We have 30-day option period that if for some reason, the seller told us something that wasn't accurate, or for any reason we need to back out of the contract, we can back out of it. But you really want to make sure that you do right by the seller and operate ethically. So you want to make sure that you did your numbers right, because the only reason you wouldn't be able to sell it, because really we're in and out very quickly. So who we're selling to is a cash buyer, and they can usually sell. I mean, they can usually close very quickly. They can buy the property and close usually within a couple of weeks. So you really want to make sure you're building relationships with good buyers that are going to perform, and then that you're operating ethically, and getting a property under contract and making sure the numbers made sense and you did the math, so you're not wasting anyone's time.
Right, Kai. So in terms of uh, this real estate wholesaling and the way the state of the real estate market is, we see a sudden rise in rents across, especially in the US and in many other parts of the. What has happened suddenly? I thought more and more units are being made, and so the numbers should be the price should be less, the cost should be less, but here the rents are going up and down, whereas in several places there are no takers for places, especially after COVID. So help us understand these two sides of the story in the US itself.
Yeah, so specifically in the U.S. is only kind of what I can speak on, but for the U.S., that our interest rates have gone up a lot. So the interest rates are higher. So that means if somebody has a property, their mortgage payments are going to be a lot higher every month. So they need to charge more in rent so they can make a small profit or break even. There's a big misconception that a lot of investors, if they have one-off single-family houses, they're making a lot of money, but typically not, because they have to fix things. There's repairs. They have a lot of expenses on their end. But yeah, I really think it's the interest rates, and just, I mean, cost of everything's been, at least here in the U.S., has been going up with inflation. And I mean, everything's super expensive now, and I think really just like anything, that the prices are just going up.
Right, Kai. So, in terms of now real estate investing, a lot of people think, I will attain financial freedom because I will put some time into real estate, passive investing, and I'll make a lot of money. You just said that, people think that real estate people, they make a lot of money. It's not the case, because there is so much to take care of. Then how can passive investing can be such a lucrative thing? A lot of people talk about passive investing in real estate and making a lot of money, achieving financial freedom. Is it true, half true, or is it fully true?
Yeah, so there's different types. So there's active investing and there's passive. So I focus mostly on active. So I'm out there, I'm looking for deals, I'm evaluating deals, I'm running the numbers, I'm talking to sellers, I'm getting offers out. So that's one path. And you don't have to put as much time, but you have to put some energy and you have to get some knowledge and learn how to do it. With passive, you can. And then just to clarify my earlier statement, I mean, if you just own one house, you might make a couple $100 a month. So if you want something passively, you're either going to have to get a bigger property and you have to partner with an active investor, partner with an operator that's going to do those things. It's going to manage the property, find the deals, do all the other things. So either one, you find someone good to partner with, or two, you find a good fund. There's a lot of investment funds here in the U.S. You also want to make sure you vet them, that they're a good one. But probably the best way passively is to find a good real estate investment trust, and you can just put your money in there, and they're doing all that active stuff. They're finding the bigger deals. They're taking down big apartment buildings. They're taking down big commercial buildings. And that's where you really start to see the bigger numbers. And, especially if you're doing it passively, that's where the bigger deals are happening.
Right. So for those people who want to get into real estate investing, what would be the best way to look at it? How do you make that entry into real estate, at least at this present time when really, the interest rates are high, and your chances of achieving financial freedom through real estate investing in today's time?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to get knowledge. Listening to podcasts like this, listening to other podcasts. I have a podcast myself, the Real Estate Wholesaling Syndicate podcast, where I interview other investors. But really, just getting knowledge. Try to learn. First decide: do you want to be an active investor or do you want to be a passive investor? And even if passive, you still want to make sure you learn enough to not get taken advantage of, or not get into the wrong deals or make the wrong decisions. So it really just comes down to that knowledge. There's a bunch of great information out there. There's a bunch of like podcasts. YouTube is great. There's a lot of great information on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel myself. There's free resources out there, books, whatever you can do. And that's a great starting point. But at some point, you're going to have to take action. So I think the best way for people to get involved, especially if they decide they want to be active, and they have at least a little bit of time to devote to it, is to look into real estate wholesaling. So I think it's the best way for people to start, because you're able to build capital. You're able to start learning how to evaluate deals. You run the numbers. You look for what other investors are looking for, and you start talking to sellers. And with that, you can keep the best deals for yourself. So if you're sourcing the deals, you're looking for good off-market deals, and you find one, maybe you sell one to an investor it's not what you're looking for, but you can sell that one and make some money off it that way. Or if it's a better property or bigger deal, and you say, hey, I want to keep this one, you can keep that one, and you can use the profits you did from wholesaling to really start funding your investment deals and really start building that passive income by doing that. And then you're going to have the best deals because you found it yourself.
Right, Kai. Now, from a buyer's point of view, at this point in time, someone has some money, the rest he will get financed. How should they look at if they are, if it's a buyer's market, one should go and buy a house for themselves? Or is it better as, having a particular apartment on rent? What does it, at present, how does that look like? How should one evaluate that?
Yeah. So just to clarify, are you asking, is it better to buy or to wait? Are you saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's always, you should be buying. Over time, real estate always appreciates. If you look at the statistics, if you look at the numbers over time, real estate's always going to go up. You own land, you own something. It always, in my opinion, it always beats renting. There's always a bunch of different things you can do and creative strategies you can do. You can Airbnb it if you don't want to live there. You can rent it as a long-term rental. You could sell it down the road. There's so many different things you can do, which beats renting, because renting, basically you're just paying someone else's mortgage. And unless you don't have any knowledge, you don't want to get in the wrong deal, then maybe it makes sense to rent for now. But if you have money, you have enough knowledge to get started. Again, you don't need to know everything, but just the basics. Get in the game. Because the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take you to achieve financial freedom.
Right. And in terms of the trends, how do you evaluate the trends, Kai? Because this is an ever-changing market, and the tastes of also the buyers are changing. In terms of renting, also it's changing. In terms of dynamics, also it is changing. So how do you plan in terms of, what are the things that one should take in mind in terms of the trends, or how do you read a bit of a future, say maybe 2 years down the road? Because what you decide today is going to impact your investments 2 years or 3 years down the road.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I really don't. I look for markets. So if a market, I don't see it makes sense to buy a property, rent there, I won't do it. I don't like to bet on appreciation, or I'm not really a gambler. I don't like to bet or gamble that the market's going to do something, because I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't think anybody does. People can make well-educated guess, but they're still just a guess. So my whole strategy is just finding highly or deeply discounted properties, where I'm getting a big discount, and I can't lose because I'm already getting into the property at a discount. So one of the big things we look at here, a lot of other investors look at here, is the 70% rule. So we look for properties that are 70% off of the ARV, which is the after repair value. So what the property would be worth if it's all fixed up, and then we subtract the repairs. So right away, we're getting a 30% discount. So whether the market goes up, it goes down. Sometimes we're getting even better deals than that. But that's the minimum for us to look at a deal. So right away, though, we know we have some leeway, or we have some protection, because we have a discounted deal. And the reason we're able to find discounted deals, a lot of people think, hey, like, how do you, if it was that easy, how do you do it? We're not going to the MLS. We're not buying it from real estate agents most of the time. We're buying properties from sellers that are distressed. So sellers that are going through a hard time financially, some kind of, personal difficulty, some situation. Maybe they inherited the property. Maybe they're getting divorced. There's a whole bunch of different reasons on why a seller would be distressed. But we do marketing. We market to those sellers and we buy their properties with cash. So we provide a solution that a lot of times they couldn't get if they listed it with the real estate agent, because if they listed it, it's probably going to take them at least a couple months. But what our benefit is we can get them paid out with cash within just a couple weeks. So it's very beneficial to them because they're willing to trade some of their equity for speed and convenience. And a lot of times, it's one of the biggest selling points if you're reading the marketing or buyer psychology or seller psychology rather, it's speed and convenience. Is what pretty much everyone's looking for nowadays, at least over here in the U.S.
Absolutely. There is much to learn about all these things, especially real estate wholesaling from you. So you have got to podcast yourself. So tell us a bit about that so that, people can learn more from that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called the Real Estate Wholesaling Syndicate. And that podcast it's all about real estate. It's all mostly about wholesaling. So I interview other real estate wholesalers. I interview other investors to learn different strategies, like subject to, creative financing, really everything. I try to find out what's working today, what's not working. And I interview, some of the best investors in the game that I know that are actively doing it and are the real deal. So that's that podcast. We do that every Thursday. They come out and we're on everywhere you can find podcasts. If you just type in my name, KAJ Logue, KYLOGUE, you'll find it, or type in Real Estate Wholesaling Syndicate and you'll find it. And yeah, no, that's it. And I do have another podcast called ODAT, ODAAT, One Day at a Time podcast. That one we do every Tuesday, and that one's more about mindset and about sharing people's stories who've overcome difficulties and hardships and turned their lives around and been able to become successful.
Absolutely. And those people who want to learn more about you, from you, connect with you as a buyer or as a seller, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is go to the wholesalingsyndicate.com. So wholesalingsyndicate.com. We do a bunch of free resources on there that you can find the podcast there. You can find more info about me, all my social media channels. I'm on everywhere on social media. So yeah, if you just type my name in, you'll find me. But again, the best way is wholesalingsyndicate.com. We have a bunch of free trainings and resources and ways to connect.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.